This review was sponsored by Soul Glow. Just joking. What's going on out there, YouTube family? This is Sammy Leggett here representing Team JVS. So I'm back again for the very first time doing a review on a film that probably when it came out, I was one or two, one or the other. I am talking about Coming to America, not to be confused with the brand new 2021 Coming to America. I'm talking about Coming to America. This was originally directed by John Landis, and this was also co-written from Eddie Murphy and David Sheffield. Now, David Sheffield also has helped accomplish some really great works for Eddie and Boomerang, The Nutty Professor, but this one, in and of its own right, is a classic. Now, to be fair, I hadn't seen this movie in years, and the only time that I had seen it was through like TBS, like reruns and whatnot. So I'd never seen it in its entirety, nor did I know it was actually rated R. I had no idea these nudity scenes from bathtub situation. I'll go ahead and get that out the way. But let's go ahead and just break down the film in and of itself with the synopsis. So, an extremely pampered African prince travels to Queens, New York, and goes undercover to find a wife that he can respect for her intelligence and her strong will. So just based on that, in and of itself, the premise behind that, you have the character Akeem. He is the Prince of Zamunda. His father, literally, is James Earl Jones, and everything about his upbringings from, he's never tied his own shoes before, let alone, done anything for himself or worked a day in his life. Like he is completely pampered and he's completely bored with it all. But at the same time, he's not unappreciative. He doesn't even seem like a seemingly spoiled individual. He doesn't have anything, but everything that kind of happens as far as him is concerned, it's almost as though when he's faced with adverse things or things that would be for a normal person, it's like, oh man, I don't know how he's going to face with this. He rolls with the punches in the most impressive way possible because it's never like this chip on his shoulder where it's like, oh man, I'm resorted to doing it. I'm resorted to do that. Like, no, he happily goes and does certain things. And I'll break down the reasons why as Akeem as a character is one of the best parts about this film because of the nature. Like if it was a situation where he was just spoiled rotten and he's just kind of trying to get his own way, or he felt like he needed to cut corners, then this would make this so much more harder. The biggest flaw within Akeem that I can even see throughout the film is that he has this need to keep everything about himself a secret, even in the moments where he really should just open up about it. Which I even then I understand why he chooses to lie to Lisa, why he chooses to live in the way that he's living, even in the midst of his situation with his father and his mother. But let's go ahead and just kind of break it down. So as far as the way the aesthetic of this film and the visuals of this film, this is unlike at the time, it was unprecedented. To be quite honest with you, Coming to America walked so that Black Panther could run, like in the strides that it's running in. Because as far as like the set designs, as far as the Black excellence, it was all there. Like it was all there from specifically like when you first open up and see it, aside from the scene that I'm talking about, the bathing scene, everything that preceded that, from how lavish like they actually lived, from like the ceremonies and how big of a spectacle it was. Not even just that, the amount of actors in any given scene within the first 20 minutes of the film, like it was huge. And back in the day, the 70s and the 60s, yeah, they had a lot of different actors that would be in one given scene at any time. But this was different. Like this was something I was kind of just like, wow, this is actually really amazing. Not just that, I think that the thing about this situation is kind of like when Akeem is presented from his dad's perspective, you have to marry this person because you've been promised to them. Like I've given you everything. You literally have everything you need. You know how to defend yourself. You know how to run this kingdom. So I need you to do this, And he, for the very first time in his life, he says, no, like I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. And even his dad takes that and manipulates it into something else that it's not. but he just kind of rolls with the punches and moves forward with it. One of the things that I had issue with the 2021 version versus this one is the understanding of how did Akeem get to a point where he had a son, especially the way that this actually ends. It didn't make any sense, and I felt like they shoehorned in that situation, but it also tainted the character Akeem because he very much so, yes, he's in some compromising situation. There's a situation where even with Lisa's younger sister, like he's put in a compromised situation. But he doesn't go on pursuit of anyone else at all the whole entire film other than Lisa ultimately. And he even makes that very adamantly clear, even when Lisa was with somebody else, which is, I'm talking about the Soul Glow. And shouts out to him, man. I'll give him this, man. Like they kind of painted him a picture like he got the bad end of the barrel, man. Like he literally was written in to be like a jerk. Like he kind of was just a cowardly jerk. He was blatantly like, forcing himself into a situation. They just made him really unlikable. He was like, quote unquote, the pretty boy that was just not a bad fit. And nor did he understand who he was going up against. Like, not only did he on an emotional level wasn't better than Akeem, he wasn't better on the outside either. And he just didn't know it. He just was like, oh, this kid's like, working at McDonald's, like he's got his own thing, he doesn't have a car, like he's in the slums or whatever, like he's not this or that. The other thing about this film that I appreciate it is not only just like the craftsmanship of the world they built for Zamunda and the Black excellence behind it, even though, again, if you're looking at it now from like the 2020s and going back and looking at 1988, you're just like, that's a little cringe, that's a little much, but at the same time, you understand, the pride in it. You understand like how this can be perceived a specific way that's never been perceived before, especially from a historic standpoint. With this work, if they remade Coming to America for modern day time, I don't know. I think it would hit differently. I think it would have to be treated differently just based on regions and areas that actually do have like levels to this, like actually have like, people with different hierarchies and different levels of princeship and kingship and lordship in different areas and makes of the world, but specifically in Africa. So I think it would be a really different take if they try to make it a reboot. I think that this is in its own pocket and during this era was unlike anything that was ever done before. But let's go and talk about the things I also do really like. So Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall are hilarious. And yes, this is a very young Cuba Gooding Jr. in the chair, but that behind him is Eddie Murphy playing a role that he just is hilarious. And they have so much fun with it also in the second one, but they are at their peak here. Like they just don't have to hold back. This is completely rated R. Like language is very apparent in this one. But every single random character that Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy have, not only do they have great chemistry pinging off whatever characters they're playing, but they are literally hilarious almost in every other scene. Like I'm not saying like every single scene hits. There are some cringy moments the more that I think about back to some of them. But just this moment right here, take when they finally do land in Queens and Eddie Murphy is like, Akeem is like, oh, okay, cool. I'll sit here. I'm gonna go and get us like this really, place to go get a apartment or whatever. And they just leave their stuff right there in in the road, and that joint gets stolen. They come back out. It's like, does it look like everybody's got our clothes and stuff on? And Akeem just like, and it's one of the things I love about the character Akeem. To be quite honest with you, like Akeem was just like, it's okay. They're deserving of it. Like it's an honor that they would wear, our robes, our cloth or whatever. And he was like, no, I want to blend in. I want to be a part of this Queens, And they didn't understand what Queens was, and that's one of the things that's so funny about this is that they, even though, I mean, Arsenio Hall's character Sizzy was like, I ain't trying to live like this. I can't live like this. This is too much for me. But he didn't want to say it because at the end of the day, like he don't want to get killed or worse, like disobeying the king in trying to find or help out the king's son. But every every single step and turn, like Sizzy is always contradicting Akeem. Akeem really much so is the good soul in this. Like he has a heart. Like it's weird that I can't find too many flaws in the character Akeem other than how his upbringing was. But even to that same exact perspective, it's not as though, oh, okay, well, he's just, a non-likable character. Like he actually really is a likable character. I love the way that they position his character, unlike how they position his character in the new one. But as far as the other things that I did, like I love the cast. You got the character Cleo, playing Mr. McDowell. Cleo is the main protagonist is love interest Lisa's dad, and your boy. Your boy Amos is hilarious in this. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of funny characters. Like Frankie Faison plays the landlord, and he's got his own little like tongue in cheek. Like it's just the backwards commentary from the people in New York, and the way they kind of treat him, the way they talk to him, like is they run with it. But then at the same time, Paul Bates plays a really classic role and kind of like the emissary for the kingdom and for Zamunda and positioning for whatever situation that was happening when they're announcing things. I think they did a really good job with him. I'm trying to think of anybody else that kind of stands out. You got Samuel L. Jackson in this. Samuel L. Jackson plays this random role, and it's kind of like I wonder if anybody actually that's like what's a good age, 2000 and above, like was born 2000 and above, if they even knew that Samuel Jackson even played a role in this movie, or they would be just pleasantly surprised in seeing him and like, wait, what's Samuel Jackson doing in this? But I think that it's just interesting to me how over the years that this is something to me that still works, that I didn't know if it would. I felt like it was gonna be something like, oh, it's gonna be a little too cheek and like cheesy, and it's gonna be too cringe. But I actually really did appreciate it. I took value in the fact that Akeem as a character ultimately knew not only like where he came from, but what he needed as much as what his life needed. He knew he needed to change. He knew he wanted to work for what he valued, he wanted to work because he never worked in his life. He wanted to live the life of American because not because he wasn't going to go back, but because he felt as though like he wanted to, aspire to understand and if the person that he is finding his love is living here, he also wanted to connect in whatever means possible. If that meant him scrubbing toilets, if that meant him even spending a second to talk to her, if that meant him going to a basketball game where he was the second fiddle for the first time in his life, just to be near her. If that meant, lowering himself down and having open conversation about talking about her worth as opposed to his. Where the things get really interesting is where Keem doesn't talk about who he is. And that's where, lying and, deceit kind of comes in. But it also does have a very interesting breakdown later on as the story flushes out, because even like Lisa's dad, Cleo, kind of looks at him in a different regard because he has to. Like it's a very funny moment when they get back to the house later on after Cleo finds out who Akeem is because the dad shows up and rolls in. And I think that trope right there as definitely reminiscent of like the 80s where it's like, oh snap, like, all right, so this group of people know what's going on, but they've already left. And then another person comes back, then it comes back again. I think that's definitely one of those like trademarks for that era piece, but it's not too unbearable. I do think that this was a messed up scene right here, and I think it does pay off later on in the second one, because I was kind of like, wait, what about her? Like, you had her barking on one leg, like you just left her, like, yo, that's wrong. And again, aside from this, I don't see where Akeem did anything else wrong, but this it was kind of like an unnecessary thing that I was like, that was messed up. But again, I do think that this is a classic in its own right. I think it was very funny. I think it also had value to it and heart to it, specifically when you break down who the character Lisa really is at her core. I do think that if I if I wanted to nitpick, Lisa is flawed in the sense that she just, while she was still dating another person, just decided, yeah, I'm gonna just do whatever with somebody else. And I kind of was like, I was thrown off by that a little bit. But it does come back. Like there is there's a circumstance behind the decision that she makes, like, does have a consequence to it. And I do like that. By the time at the end of the movie, like everything is fully realized, everything is brought out, and also the purity behind what was really done, why it was initiated. And even like from a father and a mother standpoint, from McKean's parents and what their influence did to him, as much as what they had to go back and understand what he really truly needs. Which, I mean, as any parent would understand, like there are certain things that you have to grow to learn and understand about even the person that you're raising and you're bringing into this world, and praying for their success. And I do think that by the end of it, it was also like a really wholesome ending for like just as a family, like from a lineage standpoint. But again, that's me going too deep. As a classic, it is funny. There are cringy moments that probably don't work in this age and society. But I do think it is better than this new one. I think it's worth watching if you hadn't seen it in a very long time. I am curious if you could go into the conversation. What is your favorite moment? Is it like going to the bar sequence? Is it the sequence when Sizzy is like caught in his situation? Like what is your favorite and funniest moment about Coming to America? That is one thing I'm curious about. As far as a review number, I would rest this at an 8 out of 10. I actually really do like this film, and I think I'm surprised that I still like it even though it is very old. I think it is measured in a way that I didn't expect that I would like it as much as I still do. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this review. I'll talk to you guys later. Make sure you go and check out our review for Coming to America 2, where I'll go in depth with that and my perspective on it and why I feel like this one, not just because of nostalgia, but is sharpened in a way that it's more value to this at the core of it than it is the new one. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Make sure you go and check out Coming to America. Right now, it is available on Amazon Prime. I'll talk to you guys later, as well as this one. So watch this one first, then watch that one. Keep it locked. JBS, we ain't gonna stop.